Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Unpluggered. Gather round number 3. A tough task against the Giants, and unfortunately, despite some really bright early signs and degrees of fight and some positives throughout, we ran into a pretty powerful side, and it was the way I've heard it described is it was a reality check, but not a particularly harsh one. I don't think it was a brutal or savage reality check. It did teach us that the Giants are at least a step above, but I don't think it's an enormous step. And I don't think, if you look at the pathways to getting to that point, it's not like you can't see a road forward, and there aren't some obvious improvements. But at the same time, it was sobering, and it's always hard to watch a side kick 8 goals and a quarter on you and open up big leads like that. But, we obviously move on without an enormous degree of damage done, but a really important fortnight ahead against some pretty good opposition. Now, we are proud to partner with Ticketverse for the 2025 AFL season. The Saints are back in Melbourne this week. So get premium seats at Marvel Stadium's Medallion Club for Saints games, exclusive access to fine dining, bars and more. Visit ticketverse.com.au to explore your options. Need tickets? They've got you sorted. Jump on, of course, your whatever you're listening to this particular podcast via Spotify or YouTube or straight from the Facebook page, whatever it may be, and remember to subscribe and help to spread the love. H, welcoming you in. We're obviously getting a bit used to Norwood as a ground, but it started really positively. They flexed their muscles and had a bit more muscle than us, but we certainly didn't necessarily drift off too quietly.
No, it was sort of one space in the game that we were just outrun, outplayed, out-positioned, out-muscled, and they flexed for that period of time and just showed how good they are. I mean, I've had them since the start of the year as my favourite this year, and they showed that. They showed probably why, they should be right up there and right at the pointy end of the season this year. And they're very good side. I mean, we started well, and that's something we have struggled with. We actually started the game well. So if we didn't have that, I guess, a bit of a jump, then it could have got quite ugly. And we came back at the end and fought strong towards the end as well. It's the sort of game where that could have really blown out in previous situations. We could have been absolutely blown off the park, but showed a bit of fight and got it back under 5 goals. And you go, well, yep, that's probably round about where we are compared to where they are. And if you were basically told before the game started, you're going to lose by 5 goals, you go, well, yeah, that seems probably about right. That's probably where we expect to be. So, yes, it's a disappointing result to have a good start and then have that happen. But yeah, it's basically almost what we sort of expected in the end. When to pinch a game like that would be huge. So yeah, it's as we're saying, disappointing, but hey, it's could have been a lot worse in many different ways.
Donning the Angus Hastie jacket this week is Michael Egan stepping in for Nick Splitter. A very, very busy time in Nick's life, of course. He has a child and another very young child and another one on the way. So he's going to be intermittently, you'd think, tied up with various bits and pieces. But, Michael, I kind of assessed it that we started well, but they landed a couple of blows that kept them in the game when we had momentum, so we couldn't shake them. And then when they got momentum, we couldn't do the same thing. We couldn't hit a couple of those that would have just saw us stay in it in the early part. And Saints fans can be both pessimistic by nature and optimistic by nature. Are you one who looks at it and says, we had our moments early, then we fought back? Or when it was up for grabs, they did club us? Sort of, how do you sort of see it?
Oh, look, I kind of both ways at various points during the game. A couple of times I just looked at it and thought back to the elimination final in 2023, and we had 14 players from that match playing on Sunday, and it just looked like they were killing us just the same way that they got us in that final. They got the ball on the outside and just ran and ran and ran, and their spread just, we just couldn't go with them. But then you sort of think back and and think, well, if they're not on the top line of betting for the premiership this year, they're on the second line, and we're clearly not. They've got the in-form full forward in the competition at the moment, although maybe Ben King could, have dibs on that as well. They've got probably one of the best couple of key defenders in the comp in Sam Taylor, and we didn't. We had, we had a makeshift forward line. We had a kind of a makeshift defence. They had they just blokes running off half back all day, and it just seemed every time we kicked a point, you'd think to yourself, well, the ball's going to be up the other end in 20 seconds, and more often than not, it was. They did their homework on McRae. They saw how much he meant to our midfield in the first 4 games, and they sent Toby Bedford to him, who's, probably the best stopper in the comp, if such a thing still exists. But I like the last quarter. I thought Ross sort of threw the magnets around a bit. Mitch Owens went into the middle, not as a ruckman. Nass spent a bit of time, in the guts and did very, very well, as he did all game. But in the end, when the final siren went, we're 3-2. I think 5 weeks ago, we would have absolutely taken that. No one would have expected us to beat Geelong. Maybe more people thought we'd beat Adelaide than Port, but we swapped those. GWS, anywhere else but Marvel, when we never play them anyway, was always going to be a hard ask. So let's see what happens next week. Let's see how we respond. If we win 2 of the next 3, the Bulldogs, Brisbane and Fremantle all at Marvel, then, we're well and truly still on track.
It's interesting just observing those sides that the Dogs have been, I think, pretty good, even though they've dropped a few. I mean, they'd be a little bit disappointed with their lack of consistency, but they've shown a bit. Brisbane keep giving teams a look, but then finding ways to beat them. But there's that thought in the back of your brain that if they keep giving teams a look, they'll lose eventually. So you just hope it's that week. And then obviously it gets to be a little bit tougher with Fremantle. Before we look at the votes as well, our good friend Shay just noticed something she tweeted about Brad Hill's Instagram story, which is it depends if we want to read things into it or not. It's Brad Hill patting Nasai Wanganeen Miller on the back of the head saying little brother with a star, and Nas sharing that. So we're in the business of reading a lot into those sorts of things. So I think, as we've said a number of times, the vibes around the Nas talk are pretty good, certainly different to maybe what they were last year with Battle. So if you were, and his agent has spoken a bit on radio in recent times, and it seems like it's heading the right way for us, but obviously until you get the signature, you're going to be a tiny bit nervous about how all of that goes. But H, the Crows game, I think our criticism in the Crows game was that some of our kids did what you would ask them to, but some of our senior players were probably a little bit down in that game. And I reckon you could say the same here. Now, obviously, Steele, back from injury, was a bit flat. Obviously, McRae, that's the first time he's probably lowered his colours. Definitely the first time this season. But Zach Jones struggled, and it was really Garcia and Windhager and Sharman and Max Hall and players like that probably led the way. Nass is still quite young, that were driving the bus.
Yeah, mostly. Sinclair probably was better than what he was against Adelaide. That's for sure. He was definitely off that day. But yeah, he was back, but not completely back to the level we've seen the last few weeks. Because again, he's probably one of the players that they made sure wasn't as impactful as what he has been in the last few weeks. And they certainly put, the work into these senior players that we need to impact the games. Marshall, Sinclair, McRae, as you're saying, they, just didn't have that impact that we need them to have week to week. If we have 2 of those 3 in our best players every week, we're going pretty well. But they were able to mostly shut down the 3 of them almost. Apart from Sinclair, who was okay on the day. It's just a thing of, the shining light is the kids being the ones who are, I guess, leading the way in some areas. But we need that leadership from the older guys as well at the same time. You can't just go changing week to week, getting something from one or something from the other, and that we need the group to lift together, get basically in groove and work as a full unit. So it's good in ways, but at the same time we can't just experiment, I guess, with the 1 week one group good, 1 group week another good. So hopefully they all fire this week, and we can get back to what we were looking at.
And and unfortunately, Michael, you did mention the phrase makeshift forward line a few minutes ago. We're going to have to contend with that for a little while longer, but that'll be a topic to discuss a bit later on. The Jack Steele MVP award, our votes, our 10 spread across the spectrum of the group. I'll kick it off with mine, then H, you can filter yours through, and then we'll grab yours at the end. Michael, I gave 1 vote each to Marcus Windhager, who I thought was pretty solid. I gave a vote to Jack Sinclair, and I also gave 1 vote to Cooper Sharman for his 3-goal haul as the most influential forward, and a vote to Hugo Garcia, who I thought led the way through the middle. I gave 2 votes to Kel Wilkie. I thought he was pretty influential down back. Obviously, roll on Hogan and a few other things that he was able to do in a defence that was under siege. And I gave 4 to Nasiah Wanganeen-Miller for his starring game. He was clearly a cut above in ball use, in run, in metres gained, in hitting the scoreboard and all of that. So he rounds out my 10 with 4. H, how did you see it?
Pretty similar. I gave 1 to Wood. Just thought gave us options. It's not an easy ground to play. It's not an easy one for him to. He quite often gives us that get out pass right out of wide on the wing. He didn't have, I guess, that to work with this week. It's what they call it, the ground with no hips. So it's a tough one for him to play that sort of game, but he managed to, I guess, provide that similar sort of option in sort of a few different spots. And I was quite happy with how he presented and everything on the day. Garcia in the middle, as you were saying, one of the younger guys that showed the way. Windhager, tag one way and provide the other. He's getting better at that as the year's progressing. I'm expecting, Lockie Neal's maybe getting a little nervous in a couple of weeks' time. So he's one that he's managed to get over the last couple of years now. One to Sinclair is one of the older players who stood up on the day and gave us almost what he normally does week to week. 2 to Sharman, clearly the best target up forward. It would have been nice for him to have been a bit busier, a bit more opportunity, a few more, I guess, 1-out kicks to him and that sort of thing. But again, that small ground, it's hard to do. It's tough for a forward in such a crowded area. And what he did on the day was more than a pass. And the 2 votes for him was probably well deserved. And again, Naz 4. Head and shoulder above everyone on the day. Yes, he had, I guess, the support, but he was the one creating everything. He was, it was at all points of the ground as well. Down back, getting us out, in the middle, breaking away from the packs, and even up forward. Who had on the bingo card 3 from Naz? That's a game for him to remember, and hopefully, it's a sign of things to come that he can keep running off that back line and just keep and pinch hitting, because that goal kicking has been an issue for him previously, and he seems to have found that gap between the big sticks now.
Just one late change for mine. I had my order around the wrong way. I think I mentioned Marcus Windhager for 1 vote. I had him as an unlucky. I actually squeezed in Liam Stocker in place of him. So Windhager just a bit unlucky, but Stocker the 1 vote, who's very much a fan of what he's putting together. Michael, your spread of 10?
I gave one each to Garcia. Thought it was his close to a breakout game for him. Found plenty of the footy and he's always busy. And I love his sort of angry ant persona. I think that'll stand him in good stead. Gave one to Windhager. Spent some time on Callaghan, who didn't have I think he had 24, but he didn't have the impact that he had in previous weeks. And Windhager, although what his disposal, and that was always his knock as a junior, was his disposal. I thought it left a little bit to be desired on Sunday, but he was busy and got himself involved, and he gets a vote. I gave a vote to Ronnie Burns. I thought, especially early, he was busy. I thought his disposal was better this week. I know he spent some time on Toby Green, who tore us a new one, but I thought I saw a little bit of the late 2024 Ronnie Burns on Sunday. That's a good sign. Gave two each to Wilkie and Sharman. Wilkie, the general of defence, and we probably the margin might have been closer to 10 goals at the end. Still, if he wasn't there, he's totally the general and almost the old man of the back line now. With Caminiti down there, who he's basically has to take under his wing, especially on Sunday when Jimmy Webster was well out of sorts, and Stocker was okay, but still made some mistakes. Sharman punching way above his weight as sort of full forward for the next foreseeable future. I think even if we bring Keeler in, it's been shown he's still got a lot to learn, but I thought even, especially early, Sharman presented really, really well, was, looking for holes, led up well, and 3 to Nass. I thought he was, even in a comfortable loss, he was very close to best man on the ground. Nick's mentioned a couple of times on this podcast that Nass, for all his great things he's done this year, still tries a bit of the Hollywood option and maybe just tries the hard things a bit too often. I thought he'd taken that out of his game on Sunday. He was just terrific, made good decisions, had the confidence to run past for the run past and kick a goal on the run 3 times. And I thought that was close to his best game for St Kilda, and he's played some very good ones.
You can keep the ball rolling, Michael, if you want, with the Jason Blake Award for someone who's an unheralded performance.
Yep. Well, I'd stick with Cooper Sharman for this one. As I said, I think he's punching above his weight on the forward line. Isaac Keeler hasn't shown too much in his limited time up there. With Caminiti moved to the back line, he's sort of the focal. He's the tall focal point now, and Higgins the shorter one. But I thought he was really good on Sunday, and he's also taken that, trying to take mark of the year every week out of his game this year so far anyway. So he's playing the percentages better, and I just think he's been good this year.
It's yours.
Your change of vote there probably gave mine a bit more heat. I was going to throw in Liam Stocker. I thought he's doing a good job down there. It was unfortunate we missed him for that short amount of time, because I reckon he's almost getting to that point where he's one of the first picked now. He's just that at the ball, at the player who has the ball, at the contest. He's just puts himself on the line for the team, and they're the first players you name, the ones who put themselves out there to take anything that's given to him and just take the game on, and that's what he's been doing. And it's hopefully, as I was saying, he's going to become a permanent fixture, because he doesn't leave anything out there. So it's not getting high plaudits, but he more than deserves them.
I'm going to go with Max Hall, who's putting together a good little start to the season. First half in particular, I think he had 13 at half time, kicked a nice goal in the third quarter. He certainly drifted out of it a little bit, but, it was at the point where I know Collard got subbed out, but it's almost to the point where if Butler was fit, you're picking Hall and Collard anyway at this stage. And that's, I'm not meaning to disrespect Butler, but there's no reason to leave Max Hall out of the side based on what he's doing in terms of pressure and influence. So he gets the nod for mine. the Shannon Knoll Award for who needs to lift. H, do you want to go first there?
Yeah, I've just got to get on the Jack Higgins here. You pot Adelaide and then don't show up. You almost felt like you were still in your room playing Call of Duty or whatever it was on Sunday. He's just couldn't get into the game. It was a perfect day for probably those small forwards with the tight contests, the marking contest being more centralised because of the way the wings and the pockets are and that sort of thing. And it was probably a day for him to be front and square and get the ball. Yes, we probably need, it's been a bit of a bugbear this year. I don't think we're punching the ball enough from behind. If it had a little bit more of that might have brought him into the game. But yeah, it's just, if you're not getting it, you need to sort of create a way to get it. And unfortunately, it wasn't until the last quarter where it was probably a little bit too late. But yeah, I mean, the 2 goals probably saved what would have been a very sad looking stat line towards the end there.
Yeah, certainly picked up a couple late, which, at least is something. But Michael, who do you feel needs to lift?
I hate potting kids in this segment, so I'm going to say I want him to lift rather than perhaps more than he needs to, or he's desperately out of form. But Darcy Wilson, he's just seems to be treading water a little bit. Hasn't quite shown the dash and flair consistently that he showed last year. But again, I'm trying not to pot him. I just want him not to have the second year blues because basically with our rebuild base, he's one of the cogs of our resurgence, and we can't afford too many kids to have second year blues. So I'm willing him on to that. This is just a start of season glitch, and starting next Sunday he'll be back to the Darcy Wilson of last year. I also want to give a slight honourable mention to Mitch Owens, only for one reason, that Mitch, when you're one out in the forward line and you want to ease your bloke under the footy to take a mark, ease him under the footy. Don't slam him in the back and do it. I've just noticed that's kind of creeping into his game a little bit. We've been a bit lucky a couple of times we haven't been pinged for it. But excuse me, just, be a bit more subtle about it.
Yeah, it cost Cooper Sharman that goal. Thankfully, he kicked the next one anyway in the game, maybe 30 seconds later, which was useful, but that was a frustrating moment, certainly. At that stage of the game, a couple of mine, I'm always torn on this one, which we'll discuss a little bit more in terms of the injury list. I don't know why. I don't know whether it's purely for opposition purposes, but I don't know why the club would have to be as secretive as they are about certain things. I mean, the truth's going to come out. I mean, Ross, I love his presses, but to say that Max King's knee was fine and it was only a calf issue, he had to have known, and the club 100% had to have known that was not the case. It was already being reported by relatively in the know media folks, Tom Morris, who's got a lot of connections at the Saints, that was simply not the case. And now it's been revealed that is not the case. And I don't know what it serves to do that. Hunter Clark's been 1 to 2 weeks away for 3 weeks. So if you're 1 to 2 away and you miss 3 and you're still 1 to 2 away, it means you're going to miss 4 or 5. So that means you have to have had a setback, or the 1 to 2 weeks was rubbish. It has to be one of those two things. You can't just be, he's 1 to 2 weeks away for a month, but everything's fine. Clearly that's wrong. So I just don't see why we can't be told that. And the other one is, I know I went on a bit of a rant about this on X, and it's nothing to do with St Kilda per se, because this happens across the whole competition. But Fox Sports, I know they're heavily invested in rugby league, fair enough, but they are a co-rights holder of the AFL. Fox and Seven are the co-rights holders of the AFL. I would expect the co-rights holders to be across what is happening in a game, and if you are going to write a match report, you have to have seen the game. And I don't think in 2025, as somebody who is a journalist, that is not an unreasonable request to expect that if you are granted the role of covering a game, that you watch it. I don't think there'd be anybody that would dispute that claim, even if it's a sit there and say, sorry, mate, I need you to cover Melbourne Fremantle at the MCG. Do it. you might think, I don't want to watch that, I want to play golf, but cover the game. To suggest that Mason Wood was the most influential forward on the ground without mentioning Cooper Sharman once, and then to suggest that Caminiti was disappointing because he was goalless, without in any way it dawning upon you that he's playing at the other end of the ground, the only explanation for that is that you did not watch the game. So I can't stomach that from a co-rights holder. This is not like Frank's blog where he just, reads match reports and filters them through. It's a co-rights holder of the game. You have to watch it. But anyway, that's a rant. Is there anything in there that's unreasonable, Michael? I think you should be watching the game.
Excellent shout. All I can think about is a couple of music podcasts I listen to from blokes who of a certain age who have been covering music for a very, very long time, and they're quite happy to admit that they had $1 for every gig review they'd written, and they hadn't actually gone to the gig. They could have retired a lot earlier.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, sure, there might be circumstances. I'm sure everybody's got stories where they won it, but whatever. I just think you've got to be
out by yourself.
Yeah, I think it's I don't think it's too much to ask, but yeah, in any case. Now I've got a special guest chat that we're going to bring you, very open and honest chat with a guy that played a lot of footy for the Saints, but could have, and by his own admission, certainly wanted to play a lot more for the Saints. And we delve into a little bit of his arrival at the club and his somewhat premature departure from the club and everything he's done in footy since. And I speak, of course, of Heath Black.
Going through some absolute shit at home and, really teetering with your relationship and whether you need to go back to WA. I don't think I was playing that well at that stage. I think I had a quad injury and it was just, I think it was very much circumstantial. And, but what I would say was it didn't go down well. And I reckon I sat and watched the footy show, which was pretty big at the time, and they pretty much said that I was suspended. And I think I spent 5 weeks back at Springvale playing in the VFL, like dumped.
Heath Black looking extremely fit. Looks like he could still play AFL even at his age now, looking in really good nick. Still obviously involved in the game at a local level. We turn our attention to the Dogs. I did read in an article that said in the new Sunday night fixture, so I don't know if this has been locked in as something that's going to happen long term, that we're going to play the Dogs on Easter Sunday night / Easter Monday Eve, whatever you want to call it. That'd be nice if that's the case, if you could have something of a fixture. There is a segment that probably sums up the fact that Marcus Bontempelli will almost certainly play for the Bulldogs this week. But you'd think Liam Henry, that was a bit of a mysterious one, not on the injury list, played 3 games in the VFL, named and then withdrawn a day later. I don't know if he was just sick or, got gastro or something like that. I think that's the case, that they certainly haven't said anything and no one seems worried. So you'd think Liam Henry plays. And then the other question would be, do they go back to Tall and pick Keeler again, who was managed, or do they stick to a smaller run? Because it sort of links into a listener question that Matt says, Zach Jones, 0 tackles in the last 2 weeks. And I think you factor, I think he's had 9 and 12 possessions or something like that. Do they pick Boxall or do they just change things around a little bit in that space, or is it Keeler for Jones potentially?
See, I probably wouldn't be even shuffling that much, to be honest. I don't think Jones hasn't provided or not has been that bad. He might not be getting heaps of the ball. He might not be getting, being the best on the ground, but he's out there as a pressure player. And at the moment, we don't have the likes of Butler that we've had previously out there who provides that sort of pressure as well. And you need at least someone out there doing that sort of thing. And we've got a couple, but he's been providing that body on pressure inside. And I reckon he's been, unfortunately, it seems like our players don't think he has a head either. That's the other issue. I have a look at him again this week. I would be. He seems to have played his best footy at Marvel this year. And it's maybe a little bit premature dropping there. If we go tall again and bring Keeler in, it's probably going to be at the cost of one of the small forwards. It's not an easy one to say that's how we're going to change it all up. No real injuries out of the week, which was an upside, but unnecessary changes, possibly doing too much. Henry does come in if he's fit. And again, that'll be at an unfortunate cost of a Hasty or possibly, I don't know, Collard. He was a bit off and didn't put in his best performance. We've seen prior to that he's had some really good footy, but does one bad week cost him a spot too? So it's going to be a hard decision this week if these players are up and about and if we want to change the structure. So I'd hate to be the one making the call, that's for sure. That it feels like we're getting back to that point of that hard decision making of who to play, which, as I've said previously, it's only a good thing. If you got players fighting position, that's what we need, and hopefully it's more a case of players are playing well, and with players coming back, that's where the hard decision comes in. So maybe not too many changes this week. We put in a good performance, and then the tough decisions really do start.
Michael, how do you see it? I mean, Henry for Hasty seems one that's fairly logical, but what else would you do? Are you opting for height or sort of sticking a little bit with what we have?
I agree. If Henry's fit, then he plays. Short of that, it's hard because Sandy didn't play on the weekend, and the weekend before that they lost by 108 points. So there's not a lot of exposed form there to pick blokes. Travaglia looks like he could do with a couple of weeks back in the seconds, but do you replace him with Boxall? Do we have a look at him under the roof and see how he goes? We really need another tall up forward. Do we give Keeler another crack, even though let's be blunt, he didn't show a lot during his time? We can't afford to throw Caminiti back into the forward line. We still don't have the height and defence, especially against the Bulldogs and, Sam Darcy, who could kick 700 goals on us if we're not careful. Just one thing quickly about the time slot. To my knowledge, this is the first Easter Sunday night game in Melbourne. I might be wrong about that, but if it is, surely the Bulldogs and St Kilda get together and go, we've got a chance to make this ours, this time slot.
We've both been flicked off the Good Friday partnership, so...
Yeah, exactly. If we can get 40,000 plus on Easter Sunday at night and then go to the AFLs and say, hey, look, we can pull a crowd on a Sunday night, give us that time slot. There's some talk about the Sunday night before Labor Day in March, getting us, a blockbuster game. And of course, the first teams that are discussed, as the only game in Melbourne on that night, at the end of opening round is Carlton and Collingwood. So, let's make this work. Let's not completely butcher it like we did on Good Friday a few years ago. Get a big crowd. Let's turn up and, give us a case to make this time slot ours.
Yeah, all those blockbusters Carlton and Essendon get off the back of the overwhelming success they've had in the last 25 years. But yeah, tongue in cheek. But yeah, I mean, I know it's about that sort of drawing capacity. But yeah, we could put our best foot forward. It's been interesting that the last few meetings, really over 5 years or so, one side has completely jumped the other. Last year, obviously, they tore us apart in the first quarter. We had the 5-day break or back-to-back 5-day breaks, and we looked completely flat as attack and lost by 10 goals. The year before that, we kicked, I think, the first 6 or something and flogged them at Marvel. The the year before that, they belted us in the first quarter, I think 7-0 or something at quarter time, and killed us on a Friday night. And the year before that, they beat us by 120 points or something. So, generally speaking, they haven't been particularly close contests where one side has just ripped the other one apart. It feels like it should be a pretty tight game. They're, not just Darcy, but obviously Norton, who kicked 6 against us last year, Bont's back, and, Liberatore and Richards and these sorts of guys playing really well. But our form is better than it was 12 months ago when we met them. Our prep is clearly better than it was 12 months ago. So I'd be disappointed if we got jumped and flogged. I feel that it's a matchup that's pretty good for us. But at the same time, I think the Bulldogs are a fairly decent side. So we're right in it. Fast track suits both sides. I don't know what your prediction is, Michael, but I think we're very much in the contest. We just got to hope that, given we don't have our marquee forwards, that we can nullify their marquee forwards.
Absolutely. We can play the game on our terms. We're an absolute chance. If they don't shut down McRae, if Jack Steele can be better for the run. But I think Sam Darcy's kind of the key. He's the sort of bloke with our current defence who could, if he gets some half decent supply, could kick an absolute bag against us. But if we can shut him down, Bontempelli, of course, will have 33 and kick 5 in his first day back for ages because that's so St Kilda. But look, it's, as you said, it's a pretty even contest. The Bulldogs, I know Brisbane are making an art form out of getting jumped in the first half and they're running over people, but they must have been heartened by what they saw in the first half last week. And last week, while we were poor and outplayed by a much better side for big parts of the game, we've all said there were still some positives as well. So, I think it should be a really good game.
Hey, Shady, feel we stack up?
Yeah, I was going to say the only upside to Bontempelli coming back this week against us is he should be fairly underdone. And we'd have to sort of play on that reasoning that, look, if we can make him run and not get much ball and that sort of thing, and he hopefully wears out and doesn't have that impact on the game that he normally would. So that's the only, I guess, shining light to him coming back this week, as he hasn't been in form already this year, or he has been playing and is down on form. And as we do, we put players back into form at times. It's, hopefully it's a case of we're able to nullify these players in the middle, and McRae can, I guess, pick up a fair bit of the ball and have the game of his life against his old club first up. And it's a sort of one you look at, you go, I feel reasonably confident, but at the same time, I could see him turn around and belting us. And you go, well, it's, one of those ones you just can't pick, and it's all going to come down to which side turns up on Sunday night, because both these teams have that ability of either turning it on or just completely not being there. And it's hopefully, as you're saying, has been alternating a little bit between the two of us, who does play well. So hopefully it's our turn this time. But yeah, the big forwards, that's going to be our issue. They're going to be our problem. We don't have that big backman, but when you look at Caminiti and Darcy, they're similar sort of physique when you look at them. Darcy's just going to have that extra reach on him. Caminiti's just got to get the fist on the ball. Just any time it comes to him, just punch it away. Get rid of it. If it falls to the ground and they pick it up and first to it, that sort of thing, so be it. But just take the confidence out of those big forwards, because if they get it early and get a run on, then it's going to get pretty ugly. So just defend them. Defend them, and hopefully, like what has happened this year, our running backs are there ready to take it away. And it's worked most of the year this year. Our transition from defence to forward to kick goals and that sort of thing has been pretty good. So let's hope that's how it can pan out.
final thought probably goes in regards to key forward, I guess the final point to discuss, which has been mentioned a couple of times. Michael, the Max King news, always, I guess there's been updates of sorts over the course of the season. So it was reportedly flying up until mid-Feb-ish, hurt the knee, had an operation, came back, then needed that tidy up, which was going to keep him, touch and go for round one, which obviously seems quite far-fetched. That lingered on to what we thought would be about this week. Then we had the setback last week, which was reported to be a calf that was 3 or so weeks. Now he's booked in for an arthroscope to clean up the knee for the second time since the operation. Club hasn't put a timeline on it. Tom Morris saying at least 6 weeks. So you're heading towards the mid-season bye at round 13 or thereabouts. You'd say that that's the earliest point in the season that we would see him. But are you concerned? Is it just a case of be careful, play it safe with the young bloke's knee, don't bring him back early, don't risk the franchise? Or are you worried that there's something, degenerative is not the right word, but something persistent or niggling that might remain so?
A little of column A, a little of column B. I completely concur with your comments earlier about how look, we don't expect transparency from the club. We don't want photocopies of their medical records, none of that. But the information that you do choose to give out, and I understand that injury stuff there's a certain amount of IP involved with that with every club, and I guess all clubs do it. But the information you do choose to give, I think needs to be, relatively accurate. I got told in another chat group today that, and I don't know very much about American sport, but that over there, flat out lying at press conferences about injuries is the norm. People just tell fibs about, or I got given an example in the NHL that it's like a player will just have a lower body injury and that's all you get. But I'm not sure if the club's handled it 100% well, but as for his return, the club seems to be falling a little bit this year into the trap of rushing blokes back. We saw, Marshall come back and just didn't look like it. Jack Steele last Sunday came back and just looked really underdone. And I'd hate if the club sort of bow to factors outside to sort of get him back as soon as possible before he's ready, because no one wants to see him on one leg struggling like Steele was last week and Ryan was earlier in the year.
H, where do you sit on it? It's frustrating, but it's almost a point now where do we just not forget about it, but kind of just plan for a season where he's not there, and then if he comes back and we're in the mix later, super. That can be the cherry on the cake.
Yeah, it is frustrating because, as we've discussed, that you put him in there and your whole team structure changes. He takes the best defender, and then Sharman gets the second best, and down the line it goes, and each player is able to step up again. And to know when this is possibly going to be, when it will happen, when we're going to be able to look at it and go, yeah, this is the week, the round that we can concentrate and go, he's going to be there. And you look at it, who they're playing and who he's going to line up against, and then think, oh, okay, yep. So Sharman goes in against Carlton, he won't have Wiedering on him. Or it's just, an ability to look forward and go, okay, yeah, good. We got him that week. That game looks a lot better now. And hopefully we can, finally be able to say, okay, this is when he's coming back. This is the date that we can plan around it. We can, as we're saying, change the game plan, change the way we're playing if that is what we're going to do. Does he slide into the game we're playing right now? And it's just a bit more clarity and gives us ability to know and gives us that ability to think ahead. So obviously we're not the ones putting the team out there, but we're the members, we're shareholders. We like to know just what's going on, and be able to have those chats with each other instead of the chat of how many weeks is it now? What's the story now? What have we been spun this time or whatever? It's like, okay, 3 weeks he's back. That would be the great way to be able to talk about it instead.
Yeah, and look, obviously it's frustrating for Max, but and you certainly hope that he's in the right headspace and that it's coming around for him. But yeah, I think part of that frustration in Max, unfairly, would grow from not having the full story. You then sit there and think, oh well, he was only a week away, a month, like 2 weeks ago. What's going on? Which is not necessarily his fault. It's a bigger issue than that, but. Fingers crossed for him, and obviously the parallels between this year and 2023 are evident, and that's probably not such a bad thing. That was a reasonable year, so hopefully he can continue to push along that path. Now, Unplugged, proud to partner with Ticketverse for the 2025 AFL season. Get premium seats at Marvel Stadium's Medallion Club for St Kilda games, which does include this Sunday night. It may be a Doggies home game, but still those residual rights for Saints fans. Visit ticketverse.com.au to explore your options. If you need tickets, they've got you sorted. And jump on and subscribe, and give us a review. Hopefully 5 stars across whichever channel you listen. You can follow us on the socials at Unplugged, on Twitter at Unplugged Podcast, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and half the others which I didn't even know existed, like Blue Sky and all those other things. But you can jump on there and check all of it out on there. But looking forward to Sunday night. Happy Easter to all of those, and obviously the happiest Easter would be 4 points on Sunday. Go Saints.